Good morning. The markets are moving and so are you. From the BizNews studios, this is BizNews Daybreak for Monday, the 2nd of February, 2026. I'm Alec Hogg. Here is the context you need to win the day. The asset price whipsaw continued over the weekend with the rand back over 16 to the US dollar. Primarily because the gold price has taken an almighty smack, $600. It's still hovering now above $5,000 an ounce. Both the rand and gold sharply lower from where they started on Friday morning. Hit even harder, though, was Bitcoin, which crashed to around $75,000. Here's the freshest news from our partners at Bloomberg, including that issue about Bitcoin.
In Ukraine, more than a dozen people were killed on Sunday when a Russian drone struck a bus transporting workers in central Ukraine. Officials say the strike hit civilian infrastructure, burning a bus with people inside. Now, the attack happened as the U.S. tries to mediate peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says another round of negotiations will be held this week in Abu Dhabi. Here is Zelensky speaking through a translator.
I have scheduled a meeting for tomorrow to agree on the framework of the conversation and prepare everything. On Monday evening, the team will be on its way to the negotiations. Today's Russian attack on a bus is a crime, which once again demonstrates that Russia is responsible for the escalation.
That is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking through a translator. We'll get quarterly earnings from the data analytics and AI software firm Palantir Technologies. Bloomberg's Tom Busby has a preview.
Palantir expected to show annualized revenue growth above 60% for the second quarter in a row, while the company's net retention rate has been a key driver of growth expectations. But new customer gains for integrating its ontology into large language models has actually lagged behind Anthropic and some other competitors. Bloomberg consensus calls for revenue of $1.33 billion on adjusted earnings per share of 23 cents. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
Bitcoin fell sharply, tumbling below the $80,000 mark to hit levels last seen in April 2025. The decline came amid thin liquidity and limited buying interest, deepening a drawdown that has erased more than 30% from the world's largest cryptocurrency. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang says the company will absolutely be involved in OpenAI's current funding round, despite a recent report from the Wall Street Journal saying that negotiations had stalled.
I believe in OpenAI. The work that they do is incredible. They're one of the most consequential companies of our time, and I really love working with Sam.
That's Huang speaking to reporters Saturday in Taiwan. He also says he supports every developer that uses its software after a U.S. lawmaker accused the chip giant of offering tech support that helped China's DeepSeek improve its AI model. ExxonMobil and Chevron are weighing President Trump's call to invest in rebuilding Venezuela's oil industry. Bloomberg's Monica Ricks has details.
CEOs of both oil companies are discussing long-term opportunities in Venezuela, but are hesitant to commit new capital there, saying political and legal reforms are still needed to protect their investments. Right now, Chevron's the only U.S. oil major in Venezuela, but only plans to increase production over the next 2 years there using existing assets. Despite President Trump's push, ExxonMobil CEO Darren Woods also stressed changes would take time, a more positive tone from earlier this month when he called the country uninvestable. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
Waymo, Alphabet's autonomous driving unit, is aiming to raise about $16 billion in a financing round that would value the unit at nearly $110 billion. The parent company would provide about $13 billion to the robo-taxi firm, while the rest would come from others, including new investors Sequoia Capital, DST Global, and Dragoneer Investment. The prior investment round in October of 24 valued the company above $45 billion and was led by Alphabet, which also owns Google.
Well, we'll certainly be watching out for those Palantir numbers. Here at home, there's been a lot of attention on Jacob Zuma after his name popped up in the latest release of the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's emails. On the Neil de Beer Sunday show, my colleague Chris got some insight on this from Col Chris Wyatt, who's a former U.S. intelligence operative. It's on BizNews Radio and BizNews TV. They also picked up on the death of Goolam, the social media activist who, like Epstein, supposedly committed suicide. Here's Wyatt's take on the Goolam mystery.
The irresponsible behavior of so-called investigative journalists in South Africa, in particular, the Independent Line and News 24, going after and attacking private citizens for social media posts when there's real issues in South Africa to deal with. It's shocking to see what's happening here. Goolam was targeted and people went after him. I remember when News 24 ran a thing about Twitterbots. They ran a list and they actually published in the newspaper all the times that certain people in South Africa interacted with Twitterbots and with Elon Musk in an effort to put their lives at risk. And I know someone personally whose life is at risk has had to go into hiding because of death threats. And it's shocking what's happened. I also know that certain organizations working for the government purportedly in South Africa have been sticking their nose in and using illicit methods to get into people's Twitter accounts. My Twitter account, which is 27 years old, was compromised this week and was broken into. And that's been reported to Elon Musk. So those responsible for it, it's best that you get out of my account. You've been blocked from taking further action. There is some strange things going on. Now, I don't use my Twitter account for much of anything other than post a few videos for these news articles. But the reason why they would want to get in somebody's Twitter account is because of the direct messaging capability. They're looking for South Africans so they can target them. That's what's happening. So Goolam being found dead in a hotel, what is he, 40 years old or something like that? I think it was around his age. That's a very puzzling and strange situation. And it bears investigation. It needs to have a serious investigation, but I seriously doubt that there'll be a genuine investigation into his death. People want to sweep it under the carpet and they'll be glad that he's gone. And I suspect if anyone's responsible, maybe it was natural causes. I don't know how he died, but the whole thing is very suspicious. And I suspect that there are people who have ill will towards him and may have been behind this. And also I know for a fact that there are people with ill will towards Twitterbots for simply exposing the failures in South Africa. Why should people be targeted for expressing their opinion or for expressing facts? That's even worse. And so I think this is all tied up into the Twitterbots, Elon Musk, and of course the Goolam thing. I know Goolam really make a lot of people. I read his tweets. I don't know if I even ever retweet anything. I might have. I don't know. I'd say, right now my Twitter account is locked because of the hack. But so I can't go back and check. But anyway, so yeah, it's a strange world we live in which people violate people's personal privacy, violate their own constitution to go after the people who are exposing their failures and their fraud.
Still on the local front, the pillaging by criminal syndicates of South African natural resources is rising. Linda van Tilburg got the latest from CapeNature's Pierre de Villiers.
So what is being targeted at the moment and why are these species so valuable to poachers and international collectors?
Yeah, so if you look at the seaside, you're looking at abalone, and that's a massive or a very important product in the East, a delicacy, and that you kind of have reached your status in life if you offer abalone as a dish in your house. West Coast rock lobster. There is export of that, but a lot of the syndicates are targeting local markets and especially catching undersized lobster, which is bad because that impacts the sustainability of the fishery. They tail them, that means they break the head off and then they sell the tails locally, and it's turning into quite a lucrative market. You're looking at shark fins or sharks. The fins are also sent to the east for various dishes. So they're catching a lot of sharks. Some of the meat is used, and this is mainly longliners. And then the shark fins are exported. So that's a major problem. And we've got to keep an eye out, and that's offshore. Whereas lobster and abalone are in the near shore, say 30 meters depth, whereas the sharks can go deeper. And then when you come on land, cut flowers, believe it or not, is a major illegal commodity at the moment. Export trade, all sorts of beautiful flowers that you see in the international market in the different arrangements and at weddings, etc. Well, that comes from us. There are legal permits, but there's a massive illegal harvesting problem. Then you're looking at succulents. Those are those little succulent plants that you find the West Coast, the Karoo. You hardly even notice it if you're walking around there, but they're extremely valuable in the ornamental plant trade. Also export market. I think some of the species get more money now than abalone and rhino horn.
Like a soapy breakup scene, selling your car can be an emotional experience.
Just how dramatic was the car selling experience?
Not dramatic at all. I did my research and We Buy Cars was by far the best price.
Very not dramatic. But I like drama.
I was standing there watching my phone, waiting for the money to get in, and there it was.
Yes. Car, driving.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car, by far.
I wouldn't mind a little more drama. Anybody bring me some tears?
Back to the global investment front now, and Pretoria-born Elon Musk is making waves again. This time, it's the proposed merger of his SpaceX into his listed Tesla. Evidence of how seriously people are taking this was that Tesla bucked the trend in its very soft day for shares on Friday. Tesla was up by 3 1/3%. Here's Bloomberg's transportation specialist Carl Porter on the proposed listing of SpaceX.
Well, they still may IPO this year. There seems to be a lot of ideas kicking around at the corporate table. It's certainly faster to do a combination between an existing public company than it is to do an IPO. It's cheaper. You don't have to have a bank come in and underwrite. You don't have to do a roadshow. But you also have real drawbacks to this. You don't get to roll the pitch. You could have a sudden share sell-off where people don't like what they see. You're building a conglomerate, which historically people have not enjoyed investing in. People don't feel that they can get enough visibility on the existing businesses. So there's a real debate to be had, even within the companies, on whether this is a good idea or not.
Lauren, talk to why, for example, it might be a good idea for SpaceX and Tesla to grow closer in their interaction, because they already have a relationship, a strong one.
Yes, there's plenty of cross-pollination that already happens between SpaceX and Tesla and, all of Elon Musk's empire. And if you've noticed, he's talked a lot lately about ways in which that cross-pollination could, become more intense, right? He's spoken about Starship taking Optimus to the moon and Mars and things of that nature. There's also the option of using energy storage capabilities for these data centers in space that SpaceX or that Elon's been talking about. So there is some sense to be made in combining the companies as they already work so closely together already.
What we know is, again, two distinct scenarios are being discussed, and that's the new bit, right? They're being discussed because you have people like Chamath Palihapitiya, Bill Ackman, who have hypothesized about this anyway, Kyle. We know that Tesla has confirmed an investment in XAI just this week, $2 billion, and that SpaceX participated in an earlier round in XAI as well. Elon Inc. and a conglomerate is a bit of a regulatory headache, is it not?
Oh, it could be a massive regulatory headache. If you're looking at two companies of this size, three companies of this size, presuming everyone keeps their valuations, you're looking at trillions of dollars. That kind of market capitalization is going to attract the scrutiny of government and regulators. It can't not.
Well, not everyone's a Musk fan. Here are the hosts of the Money Stuff podcast, Katie Greifeld and Matt Levine.
It's the convergence of the Muskverse, which is fun. I also love this because I forgot until today that XAI merged with X. Yeah. So SpaceX, in a sense, is merging
the successor
with
company
Twitter.
To Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Right. Elon Musk might be re-IPOing Twitter. To be fair, and this is not the right way to do the math.
No.
But if he bought Twitter for, let's say, $44 billion and will soon re-IPO it at a $1.5 trillion valuation, raising $50 billion in the largest IPO ever.
It's incredible.
It'll be like, okay, you win, buddy. You win.
You're right all along. Man.
He took Twitter private at $44 billion. And I was like, that's too high. He's taking it public again at $1.5 trillion.
It is.
That's not really what's happening here, but
it is really beautiful. I'm trying to find the rationale as lined out in the Reuters story. It has to do with building data centers in space.
Yeah, data centers in space. That's definitely the synergies are clear.
Yeah.
XAI
it's obvious.
Needs data centers in space, and SpaceX has space in its name. Yeah.
Apple's share price underperformed relative to its stunning financial results that were released last week. Here's Margie Patel of Allspring Global Investments giving us some insight into what for many has been a mystery to why Apple should actually have lost ground despite some fabulous numbers.
In the context of Apple, the consideration there is tight supply of memory chips.
Well, I think that's a trend that's going to continue for a while. We think of memory chips as being commodity chips that when demand is good, they overbuild and the prices come down. And this time it's been very different because the demand for memory chips is so extremely high, and there are only a handful of producers of memory chips, and even they are being very, very slow, cautious to add capacity. So I think it's just going to be a feature that the price of memory chips is going to be higher than we're used to, and we aren't going to see that extreme cyclical up and down in that sector that we've seen.
Well, while our Johannesburg Stock Exchange is struggling with new listings, it's exactly the opposite in the world's biggest capital markets, as our partners at the FT News Briefing share.
Blackstone has lined up one of its largest IPO pipelines in history. That's what its president, Jonathan Gray, told the Financial Times. He spoke to my colleague, Antoine Gara, who joins me now. Hi, Antoine. Just to remind folks, Blackstone is the world's largest private capital group. What kind of deals does it have lined up?
So, yeah, John Gray told me that they've really got what could be the largest pipeline of companies in their portfolio that they're going to be taking public in the coming months or year. And that really started last year with the $7.2 billion IPO of Medline Industries, a medical supplies giant. That IPO is traded really well, and optimism at Blackstone is high that the IPO market is really receptive to a lot of its portfolio companies. So I've talked to sources who have told me that, there's a pipeline of other companies that are coming, including Jersey Mike's, a U.S. sandwich chain that it bought a few years ago, and then this company Copeland, which has done very well, and it's sort of in the refrigeration and cooling and HVAC marketplace. And it's really a way for it to start returning cash to its investors.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about why Blackstone is starting to float these companies now.
Yeah, what Gray told me in the interview was he compared it to the 2013-2014 timeframe, which was about 5 years after the financial crisis. And markets had healed a lot, and people were excited about IPOs again. And the same thing seems applicable here. Interest rates went up really quickly in 2022. It scared a lot of people. IPO markets have been closed for a number of years, but now they're opening up, and that's now created a window to take sort of non-buzzy tech businesses, real kind of companies public, and actually find a demand among shareholders.
Okay, so there are ideal market conditions that are playing into this. You mentioned that the IPO markets are starting to open up. What does it mean for the broader equities market that has been doing so well lately that all these shares are going to be coming on board?
I think it's really interesting because Medline, a healthcare medical supplies company, that's very sort of old economy. It's not an AI stock. It's not Microsoft. It's not Nvidia. They're much more about sort of profits and profitability and strong cash flows, all these things that aren't really top of mind for tech investors. And so it seems like there's been a real bid for ordinary companies that are more traditional as a way to sort of diversify from big tech, which has been really the only game in town in U.S. equity markets for about a decade. I see it as a sign of sort of healing in the overall equity market, and that there is demand outside of just these super fast-growing, high-valuation tech companies.
And now you have the edge. For the full interviews and the details behind these stories, head over to biznews.com. I'm Alec Hogg. Thanks for starting your morning with us. Now go and seize the day.